I never believed a simple piece of paper could change the course of my life. But there I was, sitting at gate C-27 in Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, holding a napkin that made my blood run cold. In messy, hurried handwriting it read, "Don't board that flight. Call your mom." At first I laughed. I mean, who wouldn't? It sounded like the setup to a bad prank, the kind of thing some bored traveler might do just to pass the time. But then, just 30 minutes later, the loudspeaker crackled, and what I heard made my hands shake so violently I could barely hold my phone. Before I get into that moment, let me take you back to the beginning because none of this would make sense without it. That morning had been chaotic from the start. My name's Avery Morgan, I'm 29, and I was heading to New York for a work conference I'd been dreading for weeks. It was one of those trips where you're already drained before you even get to the airport. I hadn't slept much the night before, and I was running late. Coffee in one hand, suitcase wobbling behind me, phone tucked under my chin as I tried to listen to voicemails. One voicemail in particular stood out. It was from my mom, Laura Morgan. She has this habit of calling me before every single trip, no matter how small. Her voice came through the phone, gentle but laced with that familiar edge of worry. "Hey, sweetie, just call me when you land, okay? I don't know why, but I've had this weird feeling all morning. Just humor your mom. Call me." I rolled my eyes as I replayed it for the second time while waiting in line for security. My mom is loving to a fault, but she's also the kind of person who worries if you don't text her back in 20 minutes. I chalked it up to her being overprotective, like always. Still, something about the way she said it, it lingered in the back of my mind. By the time I made it to my gate, the terminal was buzzing with the usual chaos. Kids were running circles around exhausted parents, a businessman in a sharp suit was pacing back and forth with earbuds in, and the woman next to me had collapsed into her chair with a neck pillow already in place. That's when it happened. I felt the lightest tap on my shoulder. Startled, I turned to see a man standing there. A little older, maybe in his late 40s. His clothes were ordinary, almost forgettable. Faded jeans, a denim jacket that looked worn in, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He didn't meet my eyes. Instead, he slipped something into my hand and muttered, barely above a whisper, "Just don't board." I looked down, and that's when I saw it. The napkin. Crumpled slightly like he had written it in a rush. 4 words that didn't belong in the middle of an airport terminal. "Don't board that flight. Call your mom." I froze, staring at it, my brain racing to catch up with what had just happened. When I looked up again, he was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd without a second glance. I actually laughed, though it was the kind of laugh you do when your stomach feels tight, not when something's funny. I turned to the woman sitting next to me and showed her the napkin. "Can you believe this? Some guy just gave me this." She glanced at it, raised an eyebrow, and shrugged. "People are weird. Probably some kind of joke." Then she turned up the volume on her headphones and went back to her magazine. But I couldn't just shake it off. I kept turning the napkin over in my hand, staring at the uneven handwriting. The words, "Call your mom," felt like they were written in bold. I glanced out the giant glass windows at the runway. A storm was rolling in, gray clouds stretching across the horizon. The weather alerts flashing across the TV screens in the terminal mentioned possible delays, but nothing unusual. Still, with that napkin in my hand, every distant rumble of thunder seemed louder. My mom's voicemail echoed in my mind again. I don't know why, but I've had this weird feeling all morning. The coincidence gnawed at me. Why would a stranger tell me to call my mom? Out of everyone in this airport, why me? And how did he know I hadn't? And I wanted to believe it was random, that it was meaningless. But the truth? Deep down, I was already unsettled. Because in that moment, sitting in that stiff plastic chair under the harsh fluorescent lights of Gate C-27, I felt something I couldn't explain. A sense that this wasn't just coincidence. That napkin wasn't random. And I had no idea yet how right I was. By the time I settled into the stiff plastic chair at Gate C-27, I thought the worst part of my day was already behind me. Airports have a way of sucking the life out of you. Fluorescent lights, endless lines, the smell of overpriced food courts mixing with jet fuel. I was exhausted, but at least I was finally here, checked in, with time to breathe. Or so I thought. My suitcase sat upright by my leg, scuffed and scarred from years of being dragged through terminals. I had a lukewarm cup of coffee balanced on the armrest, and my phone was buzzing with emails I didn't feel like answering. It was supposed to be a quick trip to New York for a work conference. I'd been dreading it for weeks, hours of networking, smiling through fake conversations, pretending to care about industry jargon, the kind of thing you attend out of obligation, not excitement. I wasn't in the best mood, and I definitely wasn't in the mindset for anything strange or dramatic. But looking back, that's probably why what happened next hit me so hard. The airport around me was alive with chaos. Children darted between seats, a young boy dragging a stuffed dinosaur by the tail while his mom tried to corral him. A businessman in a crisp navy suit paced back and forth, his phone pressed so tightly to his ear that his face had turned red. A college student sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, typing furiously while sipping a Monster energy drink. I leaned back and watched all of it the way you watch a movie you've already seen 100 times. Airports are weirdly comforting like that. So much chaos, yet so familiar. Everyone's heading somewhere. Everyone has a story. And for a few hours, all of us are trapped together in the same limbo. But under the normal bustle, there were small things that stuck out. On the TV screens mounted near the gate, weather alerts scrolled in bright red banners. Storm warning, heavy rain and thunder expected in the northeast. Travelers barely glanced up. Weather delays are practically background noise in airports. I remember rolling my eyes, telling myself it was nothing more than the usual headache, and yet my mom's voicemail kept replaying in my head. She'd left it that morning, her voice soft but unusually urgent. "Hey, sweetie, call me when you land, okay? I don't know why, but I've had this weird feeling all morning. Just humor your mom. Call me." My mom, Laura Morgan, has always been the worrier in the family. I'm her only child, and since my dad passed away when I was 17, she's poured every ounce of her protective instincts into me. Some people call their moms once a week. Mine calls almost every day. Sometimes it drives me crazy, but at the same time, I can't imagine my life without her voice on the other end of the phone. That day, though, something in her tone was different. It wasn't just casual worry. It was sharp, heavy, like she was carrying a weight she couldn't explain. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling back to the message just to hear it one more time. As her voice filled my ear, I muttered under my breath, "Mom, you worry too much." The woman sitting 2 seats away glanced at me, then quickly looked back at her magazine. I gave her a sheepish smile, embarrassed I'd spoken out loud. The truth is, I'd learned to shrug off her worries because they almost always turned out to be nothing. She'd call if she heard about a highway accident, convinced I was on that exact stretch of road. She'd text me in the middle of the night if she saw breaking news about a fire in New York, even if I was hundreds of miles away in Texas. I loved her, but I'd built up this wall of sarcasm to protect myself from her endless concern. Still, something about that voicemail clung to me. Yet as I sat there, sipping coffee that had gone bitter and cold, I told myself I was being ridiculous. There was no reason to feel unsettled. This was just another trip, another airport, another conference. The worst thing that could happen was a flight. Delay, right? I tried to distract myself by scrolling through social media, but the words on the napkin I'd been given earlier, "Don't board that flight. Call your mom," kept flashing in my mind, overlapping with her voice. It didn't feel random anymore. It felt personal. And in that moment, though I didn't want to admit it, I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, something wasn't right. It felt absurd, holding something so small that carried words so heavy. A napkin of all things. Thin, crinkled, like it had been pulled from the bottom of a fast food bag. But the handwriting, that uneven, hurried scrawl, burned into me. "Don't board that flight. Call your mom." I kept telling myself it was ridiculous, a prank, maybe some strange social experiment. Airports are full of odd people. Maybe he thought he was being funny, but no matter how hard I tried to dismiss it, my eyes kept drifting back to those words. The stranger who handed it to me was gone. I scanned the terminal, my heart pounding, but he'd vanished into the sea of rolling suitcases and weary travelers. The woman beside me, headphones on, flipping through a glossy magazine, had already forgotten I'd shown her the napkin. I wanted her to tell me I was overreacting, to laugh it off, but she had retreated into her own world. I looked back at the napkin, then at the boarding door just beyond the counter. The glowing sign above it read, Flight 237, on time. That's when the unease settled in, heavy and unshakable. I tried distracting myself, checked my emails, scrolled through Instagram, but every notification blurred into static. All I could hear was my mother's voicemail echoing in my mind. Please call me when you land, okay? I don't know why, but I've had this weird feeling all morning. Her words and the napkin overlapped until I couldn't tell them apart. I whispered to myself, this is insane. There's no way this is connected. But deep down, I wasn't sure. Now, the gate agent picked up the microphone and announced boarding groups. My chest tightened. Rows 1 through 7 were already lining up, clutching their boarding passes. I could feel my pulse in my neck as I watched them scan their tickets, one by one, disappearing down the jet bridge. I glanced back out the window. The storm was rolling in faster than expected. Lightning flickered faintly in the distance, thunder rumbling like a warning I didn't want to hear. I shifted in my seat. My coffee cup rattled against the armrest because my hands were trembling. I tried to laugh it off, muttering, "You're being ridiculous, Avery. Just get on the plane." But my legs wouldn't move. I thought about calling my mom right then just to settle my nerves. I even unlocked my phone, thumb hovering over her name and my contacts. But I froze. What would I say? "Hey, Mom, you're not going to believe this, but a stranger just told me not to get on my flight. Thought I'd call you before ignoring him and boarding anyway." She'd freak out. She'd beg me not to get on the plane. She'd cry if I didn't listen, and I wasn't ready for that. Still, the words on that napkin, it was like they were alive, crawling under my skin. "Don't board that flight. Call your mom." The more I read it, the less like a prank it felt. It was too specific. Out of all the things that man could have written, why that? Why me? I stuffed the napkin into my jacket pocket, thinking if I couldn't see it, I could forget it. But I couldn't. The paper burned against my skin like it was pressing into me, demanding to be remembered. I watched another group of passengers file onto the plane. The businessman, who had been pacing earlier, marched down the jet bridge with a look of annoyance, tugging his briefcase behind him. A little girl in pink sneakers clutched her teddy bear and skipped in line with her dad. Normal people, going on a normal flight. None of them had been warned. None of them had been told to stop. So why me? My chest tightened with a new thought. What if I ignore this? What if something happens and I had a chance to stop it but didn't? I shook my head violently. No, this is crazy. But the truth? I couldn't shake the feeling that my choices in the next few minutes mattered more than anything else I'd ever done. Boarding continued. I pulled the napkin out one more time and read the words again. The letters seemed even shakier now, like the person who wrote them had been desperate, afraid, trying to warn me of something they couldn't say out loud. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was my mom. Her name lit up on the screen like a spotlight. And just like that, the decision I'd been avoiding slammed into me. I could either laugh this whole thing off and get on the plane like nothing happened, or I could pick up the phone and find out why, for the first time in years, I was genuinely terrified of ignoring her. My phone buzzed again in my hand. This time I didn't ignore it. The screen lit up with my mom's name, Laura Morgan. My chest tightened. It was as if the universe itself was daring me to choose, get on the plane or answer the call. For a moment, I hesitated. I could see the line for boarding shrinking, passengers scanning their tickets one by one, disappearing down the jet bridge. I was next in line. My boarding group had already been called. The gate agent's voice came over the speaker. "Final boarding for Flight 237 to New York. Please have your tickets ready." I swallowed hard, thumb hovering over the green button. and then I pressed it. "Mom?" I said, my voice shaky. There was no hesitation on her end. "Avery? Oh, thank God you picked up. I was so afraid you wouldn't." Her voice cracked, and in that moment, the noise of the airport, the chatter, the announcements, the rolling luggage, seemed to fade into the background. All I could hear was her trembling voice. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to sound calm, though my throat felt dry. There was a long pause. I could almost picture her in our kitchen back home, wringing her hands the way she does when she's nervous. "Sweetheart," she said finally, "please, don't get on that flight." My stomach dropped. I looked at the napkin still clutched in my other hand. My voice came out sharper than I meant. "Why would you say that? Did someone call you? Did you hear something?" "No," she said quickly. "It's just—" She stopped, inhaling shakily. "Avery, I can't explain it. I've had this horrible feeling since I woke up, like something terrible is going to happen. I've been praying, pacing, just waiting for you to call me back. Please, if you trust me at all, don't board that plane." I rubbed my forehead, caught between disbelief and dread. "Mom, it's just a flight. Nothing's going to happen. You know how much you worry." "I know," she admitted, her voice breaking. "And you're right, I do. But this is different. I feel it in my bones. Don't you ever just know when something is wrong?" Her words hit me harder than I wanted them to, because the truth was I did feel it. That gnawing unease in my chest wasn't just my imagination anymore. Between the stranger's warning and my mom's voice shaking on the phone, I couldn't shake the sense that something was about to go terribly wrong. The gate agent called again, sharper this time. "Final boarding for Flight 237. This is the last call." I looked around. Almost everyone had boarded. The businessman, the little girl with the teddy bear, even the woman with the headphones who shrugged off my napkin. Their seats were filling up. Mine was still waiting. My heart raced. My legs wouldn't move toward the gate. They wouldn't let me. "Mom," I whispered, gripping the phone tighter. "What if you're right?" Her breath caught. "Then you'll still be here with me. Please, just stay at the airport. Take the next flight. I don't care what it costs. Just don't get on that one." I shut my eyes. I could feel the napkin pressed against my palm, crumpling as my fingers clenched around it. It was almost as if the stranger's warning and my mother's fear had fused into one undeniable truth. Boarding that plane felt wrong. For once, I stopped fighting it. "Okay," I said finally, my voice barely audible. "I won't get on." I heard her exhale, shaky and full of relief. "Thank you, Avery, thank you." I sank back into my chair as the last few passengers disappeared down the jet bridge. My boarding group was gone. The door was about to close. And for the first time in my life, I'd chosen my mother's instinct over my own logic. "Stay on the phone with me, okay?" she pleaded. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, I'll stay." The gate agent shut the door with a loud click. I watched as the jet bridge pulled away from the plane. My chest was tight, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something else. Anticipation. Because deep down, I knew I hadn't just dodged an awkward conference trip. I had made a choice that was about to change everything. The door to the jet bridge clicked shut, and for a moment, everything felt oddly still. I sat in that hard plastic chair, my phone pressed to my ear, my mother's quiet breathing filling the silence between us. The plane outside the window had begun its slow crawl away from the gate, its nose pointing toward the storm that was gathering in the distance. I wanted to believe I'd just wasted my time, that I'd let paranoia and my mom's nerves get the best of me. A part of me was already rehearsing what I'd tell my boss when I explained why I didn't make the conference. "Sorry, my mom had a bad feeling." Didn't exactly sound professional. But then, the overhead speaker crackled to life. "Attention passengers at gate C27. The gate agent's voice rang out, sharper and higher pitched than before. "We regret to inform you that Flight 237 to New York has been delayed indefinitely due to a technical emergency." The words hung in the air like smoke. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned toward the counter. I felt my stomach drop as my mother whispered on the other end of the line, "Oh my God, Avery. At first, people grumbled, rolling their eyes, muttering about missed connections and ruined schedules. A man in a suit stormed up to the desk, demanding answers. But within minutes, the mood shifted. Through the tall windows, we all saw them. Emergency vehicles racing across the tarmac, red and yellow lights flashing against the stormy backdrop. Fire trucks, ambulances, airport security, the kind of response that wasn't for something small. The businessman's voice cracked as he argued with the gate agent. "What do you mean indefinitely? What happened?" But even she looked pale, fumbling with the microphone before setting it down altogether. As I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window, watching in disbelief, the plane, my plane, had stopped short of the runway. Ground crew swarmed around it, pointing, signaling, rushing equipment closer. Another announcement came through, this time from a different voice, lower and more formal. "Attention, passengers scheduled for Flight 237. Please remain at the gate area. Maintenance crews are addressing a critical safety issue identified prior to departure. We thank you for your patience." My heart hammered so hard I thought the people sitting nearby could hear it. Critical safety issue. My knees shook as I whispered into the phone, "Mom, what if I had gotten on?" Her breath was ragged, thick with tears. "You didn't. That's all that matters. You didn't." But I couldn't stop thinking about the timing. If they had discovered the problem just 10 minutes later, the plane would have been in the air, with me on it, with all of us on it. The little girl in the pink sneakers was crying now, clutching her teddy bear while her father tried to comfort her. The businessman who had yelled at the gate agent sat slumped in his chair, his face buried in his hands. Everyone seemed to understand at the same time. We had been a few breaths away from something unthinkable. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the napkin again. The words glared back at me in shaky black ink. "Don't board that flight. Call your mom." My hands trembled so violently that I nearly dropped it. The stranger. Who was he? How did he know? Was it coincidence? A wild guess? Or something more? I searched the terminal again, scanning every face, every corner, desperate to find him. But he was gone, as if he'd never been there at all. And tears blurred my vision as I spoke into the phone. "Mom, I don't understand. That man, he told me not to get on. He told me to call you." Her voice wavered. Maybe he was an angel, Avery. Maybe God sent him. I don't know. But thank God you listened. I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't shake the fear, the sheer what if. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the stranded plane and the swarm of emergency crews around it. The storm rolled in heavier, rain slamming against the windows. The plane sat motionless like a trapped animal, and all I could think was, I was supposed to be on that. For the next 30 minutes, the announcements repeated, each one more serious than the last. Passengers were told to rebook. The flight was canceled altogether. Something about engine failure detected during pre-flight checks. The words barely registered. I was frozen, my mother's voice on the phone, the napkin in my hand, the chaos of the airport swirling around me. And through it all, one truth kept hammering into me. If I hadn't listened, if I'd brushed it off like I usually did, I might not be here to tell this story. When the final announcement came, Flight 237 has been canceled due to an irreparable mechanical issue. The gate area erupted in a mix of frustration, relief, and disbelief. People groaned, cursed under their breath, dragged their bags toward customer service lines. But for me, it wasn't annoyance that flooded my chest. It was something heavier. I sat completely still, staring at the napkin in my hand, while my mother's voice crackled softly through the phone. "You see," she whispered, "you listened. That's all that matters." I wanted to believe her, to just accept relief and move on. But the truth was, I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't stop replaying what almost happened. I'd been seconds away from walking down that jet bridge, from buckling my seatbelt, from trusting that everything would be fine. If not for that stranger, if not for my mom's call, I wouldn't be here. I finally pulled myself together enough to leave the gate. The napkin, crumpled and damp from my sweaty palms, stayed clutched tight in my fist. Every step I took down the terminal felt surreal, like I wasn't walking but floating, caught between the world I knew and the one I had just barely escaped. Other passengers muttered complaints about missed connections and hotel vouchers. I wanted to scream at them. Don't you realize how close we came? Don't you see how lucky we are? But I stayed silent. Their frustration was surface level. Mine went bone deep. The night I stayed in a cheap airport hotel, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashing emergency lights against storm clouds. I heard the announcement repeating, "Critical safety issue." And worse, I imagined what might have happened if the problem hadn't been caught in time. My mom called again, just to check on me. She cried when I answered. And for the first time in years, I cried too. "Mom," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I don't know what to make of it. What if I was supposed to—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "No," she said firmly, her tone sharper than before. "Don't even think that way. You were supposed to call me. You were supposed to listen. That's the only reason you're safe." Her words anchored me. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about the stranger. The way he wouldn't meet my eyes, the urgency in his voice when he pressed the napkin into my hand. Who was he? A mechanic? A psychic? Just a man with a gut feeling stronger than mine? I'll never know. He disappeared before I could even thank him. But I like to think that wherever he went, he knew his warning saved a life. Maybe more than one. When I finally got home, I tucked the napkin into my wallet. It's still there today, creased and worn from being carried everywhere I go. A constant reminder, not just of the stranger, not just of the canceled flight, but of my mom. Because that night, as I sat on the hotel bed replaying everything, one truth became clearer than anything else. My mom's love had saved me. She didn't know about the napkin. She didn't know about the engine failure. But she knew. Somehow, she always did. For years, I brushed off her worry as overprotectiveness, smothering, even annoying. I rolled my eyes, silenced her calls, ignored her gut feelings. But in that moment, I realized that sometimes love looks like worry. Sometimes the very thing we dismiss as a burden is the thing that saves us. So now when my mom calls, I answer every time, even if I'm busy, even if I don't feel like talking, because I know better. I know that her voice isn't just comfort, it's a lifeline. And whenever I see that napkin tucked into my wallet, I remember the lesson that changed me. Life can pivot in the smallest, strangest moments. A piece of paper, a trembling voice, a decision made in the span of a heartbeat. That flight was supposed to carry me to New York. Instead, it carried me somewhere I never expected, to a deeper respect for intuition, for fate, and for the people who love us so fiercely that they'll fight to keep us safe, even when we don't understand why. And if you ask me today what happened, I'll tell you this. I don't know if the stranger was just a man or something more. I don't know if my mom's fear was coincidence or something beyond explanation. But I do know this. I'm alive because of them. And that napkin, creased and fragile, is proof that sometimes the most ordinary things can hold the power to change everything. That napkin is still with me today. Creased, faded, but powerful. Every time I see it, I remember two things. Listen to your gut and never ignore the people who love you enough to worry. My mom's voice, a stranger's warning, and one choice. That's what saved me. If this story gave you chills or made you think twice about the small moments in your own life, do me a favor. Like this video so more people can hear it. Share it with someone you care about and let me know in the comments, what's the one moment in your life that changed everything for you? And if you love stories that make you feel, that make you question, that make you wonder, then hit that subscribe button and join me here for more. Because trust me, I've got plenty more to tell. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and always listen to that little voice inside.